For a moment, and it is presenter's laptop, sound check, presenter's laptop, sound check one, and clerk's laptop, sound check, clerk's laptop, sound check one. We are back.
You ready?
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 13th meeting in 2021 of the Audit, Finance, and Administrative Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Clerk advises me we have quorum present. And members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. Members are reminded of the 5-minute time limit, which will be adhered to during the meeting. Members can submit another request to speak if they require more time to ask questions or make comments. We'll move on. There's no ceremonial activities today. Let's move on to the approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, there is an added private and confidential matter, item 14.1, which is the fraud and waste report number 32153 update, and that's AUD 21009.
That's it? Okay, so can I have a mover and a second to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Pearson, seconded by Clark. All in favor?
And Councillor Pearson, I see your thumbs up.
Oh, I voted.
Oh, my apologies. Councillor Johnson.
So yeah, that carries 6-0. So we'll move on now. Is there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes, excuse me, of the previous meeting of August the 12th. Mover to second to approve the minutes of August the 12th. Moved by Vanderbeek, seconded by Wilson. Discussion or questions or amendments? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimously. There's no communications, there's no request. So consent items, city auditor report, reporting of a serious matter to council. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive this? Moved by Clark, seconded by Vanderbeek. Is there questions or comments on it? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Item 10.1, which is discussion items, because there's no staff presentations and no public hearings. So the Citizens Committee report, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Advisory Committee, changing the standing committee to which the LGBT Advisory Committee reports. Morgan Stahl, Director of Government Relations and Community Engagement, and Cameron Crotch, Chair of the LGBT Advisory Committee, are in attendance should the committee have any questions. So I'll start by asking for a mover and a second to put the recommendation on the floor. Moved by Pearson, seconded by Wilson. Councillor Wilson, do you have a question?
No, pardon me. No, mine was a procedural question in that I would like to move the recommendation that's set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments on the recommendation coming from the LGBTQ community? Seeing none, all in favor?
Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Johnson, could you give us a thumbs up? Yep, sir. That carries unanimously. Item 2 is the offsetting parking revenue losses for the city's business improvements areas, wards 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 12, and 13. Can I have a mover or a seconder to put the report on the floor? Moved by Wilson, seconded by Vanderbeek. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimously. There's a government's review subcommittee report 21-06 of August the 24th. And Councillor Pearson, if you just take the chair for a second,
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to move to relift this report 21-006 from the information item. I had some new information that may be new information to some of you, and I'd like to just share that with you. Yes, Madam Clerk.
So through the chair, can we just have a mover and seconder to put the report on the floor first?
You can. Okay. Mover and seconder to put the report on the floor. Moved by Wilson, seconded by Vanderbeek.
Thank you.
So back to lifting it from the table. So I need a seconder in order to discuss this, to lift it from the information section.
Just point of order, sir, if you don't mind. I just got onto eScribe. I apologize for all this problems. I just want to know what item we're on now because I'm in the eScribe.
Certainly 10.3. And
Thank you.
There's a motion now that's been moved and seconded by Councillor Vanderbeek. I should turn it over to Councillor Pearson. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
I turn it over to you, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay, so this is the item on the government's committee. I'm sorry, because I don't have the information that you're speaking of.
Through the chair, it's item GI from the information section to be lifted and added as item 2.
Okay.
So you need a vote on lifting it.
So do I have a mover and a so it's moved by Councillor Ferguson. Do I have a seconder to lift this?
Councillor Vanderbeek.
Councillor Vanderbeek. All in favor? Okay, Councillor Ferguson, it's been lifted. Go ahead.
Okay. Is it to carry, Madam
Yeah,
Clerk?
and that carries
Yes.
6-0. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So this is about the mayor being able to call special council meetings, and the motion is in the minutes, so you can take a look at them there. Look at it there. But this was with AFNA before. It got approved at AFNA, went on to council, but council referred it back to governance. Governance at its meeting just got to find the date, August 24th.
Yep.
Decided not to go with the recommendation. At agenda review, I had an opportunity to talk to staff, particularly the city clerk, because the city clerk initiated this and she wasn't able to attend the governance meeting due to vacation. And I think it's important to hear from Angela about this issue before we in fact vote on it. So Angela, can you fill us in as we discussed at agenda review on why you initiated this and why you think it's important?
Thank you. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Through the chair, pardon me. So Janet and I regularly review the procedural bylaw, and as you know, annually we come forward with recommendations for amendments to the procedural bylaw in order to help the procedures during council and committee meetings. With looking at other jurisdictions and other municipalities and how they're handling this section of 240 of the Municipal Act, I identified this as a gap within our current procedural bylaw that currently, the mayor can call an emergency meeting. The emergency is defined within the procedural bylaw, and that emergency falls under the emergency, I can't remember, Emergency Management and Protection of Civil something or other, Act, and we borrow that same definition for emergency. So we also allow for a special meeting to be called by the mayor with given 48 hours notice. So we do have a gap in our procedures where council would not be able to meet for 2 days unless the item is an emergency, of course. So when looking at other procedural bylaws, what they do is they allow for the mayor to call a special council meeting, and I borrowed their terminology as well, for urgent and extraordinary circumstances. I think it's important that that we put some sort of scrutiny around calling of special council meetings if it's a last minute thing under 48 hours. And that's why I recommended putting in that wording in that language for emergency and extraordinary circumstances. Of course, it is up to committee to decide where I think we could use this sort of flexibility, and council can exercise this flexibility, is when we have matters that may be of legal nature, planning matters. As an example, I know that lately we've seen some notices of motion come forward at council at the last minute, namely interim control bylaws, sometimes heritage designation, where items really aren't discussed fully at a planning meeting or another standing committee meeting, and then there are practices in other jurisdictions where an an immediate or a special council meeting would follow that standing committee in order to ratify that particular item because it may be of an urgent matter. I'll certainly let Stephen speak to it as well if he had any other comments around that. But that is really the justification for and the rationale before putting that recommendation forward. This is something that is allowed under the Municipal Act in Section 240. And as I said, it was just a gap that I'd identified in the procedural bylaw. And that's why I brought it forward to committee. And I'll certainly let Stephen Spracklen, City Solicitor, comment as well.
Stephen, do you have anything further to add?
Thank you.
Yes, I do through Vice Chair Pearson. The discussion we had around bringing forward the proposed amendment is exactly as the city clerk has described. We have a situation where when we benchmark against other municipalities, the ability of the mayor as the elected head of council to call meetings on no notice is there to provide for our ability as a municipality to respond to circumstances that may arise without notice or that may require a response without notice. The Act does allow for the exercise of discretion to reside with council to determine when that situation arises. And we do use the definition under the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act with regards to the definition of emergency, but that is very prescriptive and precise, and it doesn't allow a lot of flexibility with regards to what qualifies as an emergency. And it generally tends to be focused more along what I would consider to be natural disasters and events of force majeure. It doesn't really align with those things that are biased from an operational perspective that may require immediate operational response. And so this is the ability to introduce an element of discretion for council to determine when a situation requires or has that element of immediacy and requires a response, and that notice would not be practical in the situation. And so it's making the rules from a procedural bylaw perspective more robust and within the confines of the powers provided under Section 240 of the Municipal Act to allow council to have that freedom and flexibility to respond to operational issues as they arise.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to the speakers list, if that's okay, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Acting Chair. First, let's set the record straight. The Governance Committee originally reviewed the proposed changes to the procedural bylaw. This amendment that we're now talking about was added by the clerk at the standing committee level. It was not added at the governance committee. So governance did not pass this on to AFNA, and the AFNA did not vote or pass this on because it came in from the clerk afterwards. Secondly, we had a real good taste of this. There was no notice given to council when we were dealing with the homelessness issue and the encampment issue. 2 hours notice with no information. Zero information provided to the councillors. We have a system that has worked perfectly for as long as I've been on council and beyond that. 2 days notice given to the councillors and given to the public. The public should always know when we're going to have a meeting and what the meeting is about. This does not address any of those things. This says you can call a meeting on a moment's notice with the support of council. Well, the public has a right to hear and know when we're meeting. And to spring a meeting on with zero notice to the public is unacceptable. I don't care what the issue is. We've always had a 2-day notice period, which is reasonable, practical, and it has worked. So I can't support this. This is just opening of the door to abuse down the road, and it's unacceptable. There has to be notice to the public. There has to be notice to the councillors. Otherwise, we might just flush the entire thing down the drain. Because there's no democracy, there's no transparency. If you can spring a meeting on a moment's notice, like was done on the encampment issue, without the public being advised, and with the councillors having no information. So this bylaw amendment, I cannot support. I will not support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you very much. I appreciate my colleagues' comments just now. I just don't also, if I could add to that, I just don't find this is in good governance. We're on a hamster wheel here. This was referred back to governance because it is within the realm of governance, and then for one of my colleagues to bring forward something because they were privy to some discussion during agenda review. If there is more additional information to be had, then it should come, in my opinion, in a form of a written report. But I don't think there's any additional information here. I think we had a very robust discussion and went down many avenues, and committee made the decision that it did. So I'm not up for reopening this debate. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. And just checking, I see no other speakers. So we're going to go back. I'm sorry, Councillor Ferguson, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Acting Chair. So back to Angela, if I can, or Andrea, if I can. Are you still there, Andrea? I don't see your camera on. Okay, just a few questions. Is there a reason why you didn't take this to governance before it come up to AF&A? Was there logic behind that, or did you? Or do you remember?
So through the chair, so we brought amendments forward, I believe it was to the July governance meeting. And throughout the time frame between the July meeting and the August AF&A meeting, we were reviewing the procedural bylaw again, and we look at other municipalities all the time to see what's in their procedural bylaws, and we compare. And this is an item that was brought to my attention. So that's why we spoke to Councillor Pearson, and she brought the amendment forward. And I should note that we bring amendments forward to standing committee reports, subcommittee reports, and committee reports at council. We bring amendments forward regularly. This isn't something that was just a one-off. We do bring amendments forward on a continuous basis to provide new information that's come forward to standing committee or subcommittees or council.
So, Andrea, do they, in order for the mayor to call a special meeting, it has to be a decision of council. So is there notification and approval from a majority of council before this meeting can be called?
So through our regular process, when the mayor or any special meeting is called, we do provide a meeting notification with usually a few lines to say what the special either standing committee or council meeting is about.
And does that go to the public also, or just to the members of council?
It goes to members of council first. Once we know that we have the majority or 2/3, depending on what's required, then we put the notification on the web.
So the public is notified then, although it's a short period because it's a special meeting being called by the mayor for extraordinary items. And
notification is provided as soon as we get the petition from council as far as accepting the meeting invitation. Yes.
Okay, and on the issue, or someone taking offense to me bringing something forward to come up with agenda review, I thought you had I thought it was necessary that the committee hear from the clerk, and the clerks and legal are highly recommending this. I think there's a lot of concern that a future mayor could abuse it, but if you need the approval of a majority of council before it can go ahead, I think that puts the necessary controls in place. And so I do support the amendments, particularly when our city solicitor and our city clerk are highly recommending this as something that we need in order to deal with these situations when they come along. So I support the recommendation, and we'll vote that way accordingly.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So then with that, I have no more speakers. The directions on the table, Angela, I guess we call up a vote, correct?
Yeah, so to the chair, so up is the proposed amendment. So Councillor Ferguson, are you moving that amendment then that was lifted?
Yes.
Okay, and then is there a seconder on that?
Can I second it in the chair?
Yes, you can, Councillor Pearson.
I'll second it.
Okay, and then if there's no further discussion, I can open the vote.
Thank you.
And that's defeated on a tie vote. Okay, let's move into.
How did we
There
get
are
a
no
tie?
more.
I'm sorry. How did we get a tie vote? There's 5 of us. Was Brenda not in? Oh, Brenda's in.
So to the chair, through the chair, 3 against and 3 in favor.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
sorry.
a quorum
Just
of 6
Brenda's
today.
not video isn't coming up, so I'm seeing
She's
5
having
faces.
some issues with her
Yeah, that's
with her
fine.
camera.
Okay, thank you. And
So to the chair, we still need to vote on the governance report as presented.
Okay,
correct.
so you have the governance report that's been moved and seconded before you. So all in favor?
Excuse me, I had a question on the report. I had it put in the chat room, sorry, and I had my
Okay.
hand raised.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, folks, about the problems. So my question through you to, and I'm sorry I don't have the report up, I just have the appendices up, and this is about the eligible expenses for elected officials. I just have a question through you to, if Mike Segerick is here. Mike, you know that we were talking about my budget because I have an assistant that's off on maternity leave. And in the past, we've had counselors come to the council. Oh, hi, Brian. To come to council to ask for more money so they can cover their assistant's maternity leave while they're having fill-ins. So I was told by Mr. Segerick to hold off because they're having a report come forward to hopefully cover this cost so that the counselors don't have to come with motions all the time. Is this, and I'm looking everywhere and I don't see it here, but I was understood that this was the report it was coming in for.
Yes, through the chair.
Yes.
You're correct, Councillor. So the attached to today's agenda, so it's Appendix A to
Correct.
Item 1 of the Governance Review Subcommittee, is the appendix that talks about the staffing. So what the changes.
What page are you on?
Oh, so it's page 5 of 13.
Okay, let me get there, please. Okay, I just want to be double sure here. Okay, go ahead. Staffing, thank you.
Right. So and that was the discussion, and so it originated back in I guess in 2021, where we were requested to look at options for funding of backfilling for administrative type positions for these types of absences. So we built that into the policy. So now the ward office budgets, they won't be responsible, and individual counselors won't be responsible for those additional costs.
So theoretically, and just to put this in logistic view, my budget always, I'm very frugal and make sure that I always have money to return back to the city. This year, I'm currently, if we go as is, I'm going to be quite a bit in debt because I'm covering 2 positions now instead of 1. So is it just going to show that I have been overspending? How's this going to work logistically? So in all the do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want this. It's like a black mark against me.
Right. So through the chair, what we'll look to do is we'll look to fund those from another budget. So we'll bring some funds into your budget or move those costs out of your budget. We'll discuss logistically on how we want to do that so it doesn't show or shows funded in your budget.
Thank you. And sorry, folks, but I think it benefits everybody to understand this because I thought I'd never have an assistant that would have a baby, especially I had Kathy Denny and then we got Kristen who had a beautiful girl. Anyways, thank you so much, Brian. So I'm going to let my staff know that our budget is in safe hands. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. So we need to ensure to Brian and Mike that whatever the process you create for this, it's confidential. Because the whole point of creating a process where short-term disability, long-term disability, sick leave, pregnancies, et cetera, it's very easy when a counselor only has themselves and one other person or 2 other people in their office for people to figure out what's going on. So you want to make sure that the process is in place that it doesn't show up on the budget for the counselor because it's human resources, it's labor. It shouldn't be a part of the counselor's budget. So I'm not sure how we're going to deal with this. so that the employee who is on the pregnancy leave gets paid, but it's not coming out of the counselor's budget. Because if we do it that way, it's easy to, we're in essence revealing through the back door what we're not supposed to be revealing through the front door as results of health privacy.
Who's that a question to?
Mike or Brian?
Yeah, so through the chair, yeah, Mike's not available today. Yeah, so we'll look at that procedure, and looks like Stephen Spracklin's there looking as well. But yeah, we'll look at the procedure and determine how we can best make sure that those privacy issues are addressed, and so that information can be not shown and not available publicly.
Stephen, I see you turn your camera on. You have something to add?
Absolutely. To the chair, to Councillor Clark, Mr. Zagaric is not able to make it today for personal reasons, and so he's asked me to step in to be acting general manager for the purpose of this meeting. And so, in response to the question, Councillor Clark does raise a very valid and legitimate concern with regards to what we commonly refer to as the problem with small numbers from a reporting perspective. And essentially, what it allows you to do is to look through the anonymity associated with large budgeting numbers to see individuals, and that thereby can result in inadvertent disclosure of personally identifiable information in situations where we are dealing with councillors' budgets, such as in this situation, and there could be a potential disclosure of health information or a violation of someone's privacy rights because of the application of small numbers. We will have to come up with a solution to address this with regards to any form of documented medical leave to ensure that we do not have, as Councillor Clark has rightly pointed out, backdoor access to health information, health records, or something that's personally identifiable about an individual because of a budget reporting process. This is an item that has been brought to our attention. We're looking into it, and we will be putting forward some measures to ensure that inadvertent disclosure does not take place going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Spracklin. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we'll go back to the original motion. Any other speakers on it? This is the report of the Governance Committee. So all in favor?
Okay.
It carries on a 5-1 vote. So the next is motions, and there are none. Is notices and motions? Seeing none, there's no general information. So we will now need to go into closed session for item 14.1, a fraud and waste report update. Can I have a motion to move into closed session pursuant to section 9.1, subsections B, D, and E of the city's procedural bylaw 21-21 and section 239.2, subsection B, D, and E of the Ontario Municipal Act, as amended. The subject matter pertains to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, labor relations, or employee negotiations, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. So can I please have a mover and a seconder to go in camera? Moved by Pearson, second by Vanderbeek. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. I advise that during closed session portion of the meeting, the live stream and broadcast closed session progress screen. The broadcast will resume when the closed session portion of the meeting is completed. A reminder to all members of the committee to please ensure you move into a closed session portion of eScribe. And before we move into closed session, I would ask that all members of the public to please now exit the WebEx meeting. As well, staff that are not directly related to the in-camera items are now asked to please exit the WebEx meeting. And Madam Clerk will let us know when she's ready to go. Okay, we're now back in open session. Can I have a mover to second to approve the following? That the direction provided staff in closed session respecting report number AUD 21009 fraud and waste report 32153 update be approved, and that the report AUD 21009 fraud and waste report 32153 update remain confidential. Mover Pearson, seconded by Clark. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's an electronic vote.
So Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Johnson is not with us any longer, I don't think.
That carries unanimously. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Pearson, seconded by Vanderbeek. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Good job, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.